Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's community conversation with Inside Fashion Design. If you are new here, we're thrilled that you're joining us today. Inside Fashion Design is made for our audience and people like you that are looking for fashion industry resources and insights, and also community. So part of what we do weekly is this community conversation where we can chat and meet and greet and network amongst each other and also learn from an industry expert. So today we have with us Grace Kallish. So excited to see you live. I wish we were in person in the same room, but this is the next best thing.
I agree.
Yeah, and you are joining us from Palm Springs, which you moved to after working in the LA area for most of your career. And so I'm excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you.
Number one, we've known each other for a long time, and I can personally say that we worked together for many years, and I learned so much from you. And also just your attitude and your confidence and how you presented lines was always so inspiring to me.
Thank you.
I felt like I learned a lot just from listening to you and watching you. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity for others to learn from your years of experience and your just the way you do your sales and presentations and all of that. So I do have a little list of some things that we'd love to share with the audience and have you explain. But why don't I start out first by just letting you introduce yourself and high level of your career from where you started and kind of up to where you are now. And then we'll go into some really good tips and tricks. And who's that? A dog?
No, it's my husband getting coffee. Sorry.
Hi. Hello. He's an industry pro too. He could pop in and probably have his.
I asked him to join us and he bowed out. So yeah.
The camera shy?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah. So, could I step back a moment? And I forgot to do this, but part of our community conversation is to get to know each other and just quick, brief hellos. So I'm going to ask Sloan also to introduce themselves. And if others join in, we'll offer the same. And we really want to make this an interactive conversational style. So Sloan, would you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Sloan. I live in the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. I grew up here. I'm a artist is how I view myself. So I currently work at Indochino. I'm like a haberdasher person. I'm like fitting people for suits. That's my day job. But my passion is I make like one-of-a-kind couture gowns most of the time. I make all kinds of stuff. I try to incorporate as much upcycled and found material as possible to reduce my impact on like the waste stream. And because that's really important to me. But also I realize that like sometimes you can't always do that if you need like a really good specific zipper. I always buy new thread, that kind of stuff. But try to like reuse old vintage stuff as much as possible. I've been published a bunch of times, and the coolest thing I've ever done was I was in London Fashion Week, and I'm really happy and proud of myself about that. But since COVID, I'm kind of like taking it easy. I'm preparing for my wedding, so I'm making my wedding dress right now. So like in the design process of that. So trying to give that my all right now. And I'm also a like public outreach, like community organizer, fashion activist, and spokesperson for Inside Fashion Design. Yay. And I don't know anything about business. I'm just like I just like to sew. So I'm very interested to hear what you have to say today. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sloan and Grace. Take it away.
Okay, so I think what was so key to the success and the longevity of my career was starting in retail. So straight out of college, I joined a management training program for a department store. And that's where I really learned my ethics and my work ethics, I guess, is what you would say. I was fortunate to work with an amazing buyer, and she taught me you learn everything from the ground up. You started the program, you worked in the ticketing department, you learned everything, you worked in the stores, and then you ended up in the buying office, which is where I wanted to be. And I actually ended up in the swimwear buying office, which is ironic because that's where I spent my whole sales career, was in sales of swimwear. So what I found most beneficial was learning how she returned phone calls at the end of the day. No matter how busy she was, she would take all her messages, and this is in the old days where everything was handwritten out, and she'd take those little papers and return everyone's phone call. So I always found that that was pretty amazing. And she never really, in the days where buyers were being romanced and taken out to dinner and all that type of thing, she never did that. She was always very professional. We also learned the hard way, and I was one who constantly made little mistakes because I was just trying so hard to be perfect. And then I found out, she put me down and she said, just make one big mistake and just get it out of your system, just relax. And I was just trying so hard to please her because she was like my mentor. And it was nice to start a career with someone who had such great work ethics. And I think that just trickled down into everything else that I thought of later on in my career. But I think that first 6 years of my career starting in retail was the best background I could ever have, especially knowing what a buyer was going through. So I knew what to anticipate and how to cater my sales towards the buyer, because I was that buyer at one time. So knowing that they have so much to do, as a seller, I always tried to make their job easy. So I would do all their paperwork for them. I would get their spreadsheets of however way they had to present their orders, and I would fill it out for them so that it was easy. It was an assortment that was, I felt for them, especially for their business, was catered to who their customer was. So I tried to do as much work for them up front. And I think that was really, and then I think just being knowledgeable and passionate about your product, it comes through. And honesty as well. Just being very honest with the buyer and not trying to sell them something that they're not going to sell. And if they, in some cases, would say, what do you think about this particular swimsuit? And I was like, you really don't need it, and just being honest, and they appreciate that. And that honesty comes through. And then that's what builds that relationship with that buyer. Once you've built the relationship, whether it's through hard work or humor, in my case, sometimes, a lot of times my buyers wanted to hear a funny story, and I was always ready. And I think that is key. You have to find that common denominator between that person and being a good listener, listening to what they're saying to you, and even just repeating it back to them. They all of a sudden like, you get me, you understand. And it's really nothing other than just being a good listener. So
that's amazing. That's like 10 nuggets to apply to your work, like just in that little description. That was fantastic. And that's something I definitely saw in you when I was working with you, is that the buyers were comfortable. You always had a sense of humor and would joke about things. And I love that the honesty is something you really think about, because the collection might be 24 items and they don't need everything. And so you're customizing and tailoring to each person. You're like, okay, you don't need any of those. You need, these are the key pieces that you need, that,
that's literally what I do every day at Indochino. Is people are like, I'm getting married in the summer and I want a linen suit. And I'm like, but you're the groom, right? You don't want linen. You're going to be so wrinkly. And then they're like, whoa, why didn't anybody tell me that? And then
Right.
he immediately trusts me and will take
Sure.
my advice.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
sometimes
It's so
being honest like
interesting.
that. Yeah, it's the best way. Like you're not trying to just sell them something. You're sharing, you're telling them what they need or working with them to get them the best product. And
Well, I want to develop a ongoing business with them. I don't want to just sell them one time, because if you sell them something that they're not going to sell, why would they buy it again from you? So you're putting your best foot forward, and then they're going to trust you. They're going to give it to you and just say, you do it. Here's your budget. And you put together the assortment. And that's pretty much what I did throughout my career. People were appreciative of knowing that I wasn't going to give them something they couldn't sell, because why would I? I want to continue doing business year after year with them. So
yeah, and you have built very long relationships with some of the biggest names and the biggest retailers. And it sounds to me like you're a concierge for them. You're doing so much more. I don't know what's required of salespeople now as far as, data entry and spreadsheets and all that,
Sure.
but it sounds like you went above and beyond and provided them with doing some spreadsheets and doing some of that data entry that is so time consuming for them. And by assisting and helping with that process, I'm sure they just right away were like, oh, she's great. I want to keep going with her.
Yeah.
She's gonna
make it, yeah, and it sells. If you're aligned with a brand that sells and you have someone willing to do your work, why wouldn't you buy from them?
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to have really good brands, and brands that were designed by talented designers like yourself. I so enjoyed our time together at Nike. That was probably one of the highlights of my life.
Yeah, we definitely had fun. And like I said, I learned so much from you too, because we had so many different categories. We had, from Kohl's to then actual going to Nike to sell for the retail store. So we had all these different customers.
Right.
And every time as a designer, I had, we were showing the whole collection, but you could pinpoint and pull out those styles that you knew would work for them. So you're eliminating a lot of the work for them, right? They don't have to pick from 12 things.
It's overwhelming. Okay. And as a personally, selfishly having to bring all of that merchandise.
Oh my gosh, how many rolling racks did we roll?
Those rolling cases, those what we call coffins, they were like rolling coffins, and hearing those at the airport come out of the baggage claim and just like dum dum. I was like, oh God, like, how am I going to get that off? Yeah.
And it wasn't just one or two, it would be like 4 of them or 5. And
I know.
And quick side story.
Yes.
Grace, you had broken your ankle or bottom portion of your leg, and she had this big cast, and she was you were still traveling, lugging these coffins around, going to your appointments. And
it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. But the secret really of that is when you're in baggage claim, you align yourself next to a young, like strong looking man, and then you go, excuse me, a case coming down. Yeah, and then he's like, and here you are, with a thing on your ankle, a walking cast, and of course they're going to help you, but it was the only way I could do it. It was crazy.
Yeah, and then you were also driving around in California with all these things in the trunk of your car, going in and out for appointments. And
absolutely,
so you definitely have to have the energy, and you're not just always sitting in an office doing computer stuff. You're on the phone, you're out there, lugging things around and showing in person. And
it's physical. I would always come home after travel with a big bruise on my thigh, because that was how I would push it into the car using my leg. I always had that bruise. It just reminded me of my trips.
One of the work dangers, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
So you were a buyer to start, and that's so great to hear how that taught you to look at things from that point of view. And I know that might not be possible for people that are just starting out. So,
Mhm.
but I guess advice would be to really look at things from their point of view, or put yourself in the shoes of the other person, and what
Sure,
are their challenges? What do they need to achieve, and how can you help them? And
exactly.
don't you think, I notice with you too, you ask tons of questions.
Well, I
So
think that's the only thing, I mean, I think the key question is just how can I make your job easier? Because if you're going to make it easier for them, they're going to give you, if you're willing to help them, I think that, and then you learning their systems and learning what, doing it exactly how they would need it done, by asking for those forms that and then you fill those out, then you send it back to them completed. It's like, that's a
they
dream
love
for the buyer.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
the key, is just making their job easy, because they have a very difficult job, because their jobs are being consolidated. Yeah.
And they're having to do
And yeah, they have to do
more,
many things. Yeah, and a lot of
tasks.
times they don't even have assistants. So
Yeah. And thinking back to when I was younger and just maybe tagging along on some of these
Mhm.
appointments, if I think if I had been more inquisitive maybe, or less shy about asking things.
Mhm.
I mean, I of course learned as I went, and I was always with a sales team and
Right.
whoever was in the meeting. But I recall that I was hesitant to maybe ask a question, because I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't want to look
Right.
dumb. But now I would totally encourage, ask a question. Say, I've only been doing this a year and I'm still not sure how do you go about doing this? Or what are your responsibilities that I don't know of that I can do to help you? Things like
Well,
that.
that
I would,
that is true, because it endears yourself immediately, and they want, it puts the whole meeting in a different perspective. You're not trying to be an expert, you're showing almost like a vulnerable side of you, and people want to help, by
yeah,
nature, people are kind, and you're right about the whole questionings. I mean, questions is how you learn. And I'm not afraid to say, I'm sorry, I don't know. Like when we would be at Nike and they would use all those acronyms, like, whoa, 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 I need a dictionary, because I
yeah,
don't even know what you're saying right now.
yes,
And it make it funny. And
yeah,
they would stop, because to them, that's second nature. For you, it's just
right. They
like,
don't realize.
and then if you
Yeah,
don't know what they're talking about, how are you going to service and help them?
right.
So,
And you can leave the meeting completely confused because you don't know what they were referring to. It's so funny because yes, everything is an acronym, and I think I still don't know what some of them were. And I think, like sitting in some of those meetings you could be sitting with the GM, like they would say, oh, the GMM's coming in, or even like that. You're like, oh, sounds like a
yeah,
big one,
exactly.
which it is. And that can be somewhat intimidating for a younger person. So, but again, I think just
You have to show
sharing.
no fear. If you show fear, it's like,
Yeah,
so I think just going in knowing that you know your product better than they do. So you in that room, you're the expert, and you just remember that. And I remember going to some of those Dillard's seminars where you did roundtables. And I remember distinctly in St. Louis, I saw just this table of people just staring at me with just like straight face, and no one looking like encouraging or anything.
or
So
like they're
it's just
enjoying
like,
themselves.
yeah, and I get really funny. I get very stubborn, and in my mind, it's like, I think I am going to make you laugh, and you are going to smile, and you're going to enjoy what I have to tell you. So you always have to find a way of relating to the room. This room was difficult, probably the most difficult. So I'm very proud to say that I did actually, if it not crack a smile or, a chuckle, but that was, I found that very gratifying.
That's awesome, because I think oftentimes when people have that energy or that look, right away you're kind of defensive and scared and not sure what to do. But if that's exactly what I saw you do is, everyone would end up just at least smiling, and
Yeah,
these buyers could be looking at thousands of items,
I know.
every day. So they're like, here's yet another brand, another 50 swimsuits I have to look at, and it's all the same, and everyone's doing the same trends. And so I'm bored, or I'm tired.
Exactly.
and
I
and
tried
like,
to have their assortment already on the grid so
yeah,
that we could actually not so much talk so much about the product, because you're right. I mean, there was very little differences between all the different brands that they were looking at. So who do they want to work with? So
there
that,
you
the work part was already done. Here, do you like it? Does it look pretty? A lot of times they're very visual. So rather than go through a whole presentation, just having that visual, like this is what your floor is going to look like already up there on the grid, made it easier for them to relax while they're in the meeting, and it gave me the opportunity to get to know them better, because
Yeah.
it's so important. So
and very competitive. And I love your point about how showing them how great it's going to be to work with you. So it could be 5 brands that they've seen in the last 3 hours, and everyone is doing a version of blue because that's the trend. So
sure.
why would they pick your brand over the others? And it very could come down to the service that you're providing. If you're making
Exactly.
it much easier than the other brands, I'm going to work with you because I know I'm going to, everything's going to be taken care of. It's going to be easy.
Mhm.
I trust that person. And so that could be the huge benefit and the value you're bringing.
Yeah,
over the
building
other
trust is
Yes.
key. Just build that trust and you'll have their business forever.
Yeah. So you have worked both, we've talked about this already a little bit, but you've worked at the corporate level doing
Yes.
big brands as a sales rep, and then you also left the corporate world and went out independent. So could you just kind of highlight maybe some differences, pros and cons of each, or kind of just an overview so someone would understand, okay, if I'm going to work for Nike as a sales rep, kind of what does
Mhm.
that look like? And then if
Right.
I want to be independent, what does that kind of entail and look like?
Yeah, I think it just depends on you as a person, your personality. For me, all I knew was corporate world, because I worked in retail, and that was very corporate. It was very structured. There was a pecking order, and that's kind of how I started my whole career. So working with corporate companies on the flip side in wholesale really was a good fit for me, because I was already comfortable in that world. It's much more structured. You really don't have the flexibility. You don't have the creativity so much in corporate, but there's a comfort level too, where you're going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. And for me, that was, I needed that. I needed that comfort and structure. But then after a long period of time working under those confinements, you kind of want a little bit more freedom. And I think as an independent rep, you have the ability to not just represent one brand, but you could represent multiple brands. You can represent multiple categories. So if you're someone who's an independent worker and doesn't need someone babysitting you almost, I think our world, the way we are now, and people who are starting in this career are more independent thinkers and like the ability to multitask or be able to do different things, not just one category. So I think the future for corporate sales reps is more limiting than independent reps. And I think corporate companies see the benefits also, because they don't have to pay the different perks that they have to for a corporate salesperson. They don't cover their insurance. That was the other thing. I had a family and my husband had his own business. So I was the one who had the insurance for the family. So as a corporate employee, that's one of the perks. So depending on where you are in life and what you need and the different, and I don't even know how many, I haven't been in the sales part of it for a bit now, how many companies really are hiring on as corporate employees. Very few. I think they're really it's more enticing to hire independent reps because first of all, they have the experience and they have the client list already built, whereas someone's just coming in, they may not have that, in the corporate position.
Yeah, I was curious about that too with today's economy. And yeah, the corporations don't have to pay, like you said, the insurance and all those extra, I'm sure they're saving money. So if they hire as an independent rep, well, two questions. How do you carry multiple brands? Say you're really focused on swimwear. Obviously, you don't want to have two lines that are similar and competing with each other. So how do you kind of differentiate or make sure, do you have to share? I am sure you tell the company, like say you're selling Blue by Rod Beatty. That company would have to know that you're also selling Jessica Simpson, or
Right.
So you have to be open and honest about the lines you're carrying. Do they always ask? And then
Yeah, you absolutely, there's definitely that transparency that is, you cannot, they have to know what's going on only. And so in that case, a lot of times people will do a swimwear line and a cover-up line because there's no competition, but they go together. So when you put together your package, you really need to think about who you're selling to and what their needs are, because you want it to be like one-stop shopping for that buyer. So you may have, if you're, again, I'm speaking of swimwear only because that's my background, but you may have a hat line, you may have sunglasses, or people have carried like products, jewelry even, because their boutiques may, just know who you're selling to. And then that's kind of how you end up picking up different brands that don't compete, but are something that the buyer would be interested in looking at. Because when you're coming in to a buyer to show her something, you want to show her as much as you can, and she wants to see as much as she can. So it's very productive of her time.
Yeah. And what about the legalities? Do you have some sort of contract with the brand that, and then you work out your commission rate and your...
Absolutely. Yes. And I was very fortunate because when I entered into this whole new world for me, I had no clue. So I think you know her. Do you know Odie? She's also a swimwear veteran.
Okay. Yeah, name's familiar, but I
always would send my contract to her and just say, does this look good? Because should I ask for more? I don't know, that type of thing. So it was nice to have friends in the industry, which we're all friends. We're all personal friends. And it was a nice little community, that was one thing also. Independent reps are a very tight-knit group, and it kind of carried over, which was
that's so great to have that kind of support, and you can ask each other for advice. And
of course, and we would share contacts and stuff. So I think swimwear was a very unique industry. It wasn't as competitive. Everyone was friends, willing to share information. It was nice. It's really nice.
So this just popped into my head about our swimwear market, and every single year you're going to trade shows, and the big one in Miami. And so that's a huge part of, being in sales too, is traveling and going to these shows, and you're setting up the booth, and you're, setting up the display, and then maybe pulling styles that are going to be showed on the models that are in your booth, and then maybe the runway show. And so a lot of those sound really glamorous and fun, and part of it is, but it is a lot of work. Like we were
It's
setting up
exhausting.
for days and then standing in the booth for days. And
Yes.
so again, it's the community of it, and which is really nice, but this is a lot of work,
It's a lot of work. You really need to like who you work with, because you truly spend so much time with these people, and it just makes the job less hard work when you like them. And I've been fortunate. I've had some really fun people I've worked with. So in the downtimes, we would just be silly and goofy, and but it was
enjoying
fun.
yourself.
Yes.
So I know we have about 9 minutes left before you have to leave. I would like to ask you, from a designer's point of view, because often as a designer, you have to sell the idea. It might be the very beginning of your concepting. You could be trying to sell this to your boss or a merchandiser to say, I need these many pieces because. So from a design, you've worked with designers long enough. I think you could share or maybe give some tips on, as from a designer perspective, what would be some good sales tips or tricks that, because oftentimes the designer's not, trained for sales, and they may be a little unsure because I don't know if they're younger or newer and just don't like doing the presentation. So what would be your thoughts on some things they could do to kind of improve?
So as a salesperson trying to influence the design for future collections, it's not really, I don't think the designers care what you say. I think they care about what your customers want. So if this feedback is coming from the customer, it has more credibility, unfortunately, than what you want. Because a lot of times the salesperson, they're not designers. They don't know. They're not in front of the customer day in and day out working, with people asking for certain things. It's your buyer. So I would just make sure before season that you speak to all your buyers and, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What could we change? And then that feedback is what you give to the designer. And that's going to be the most helpful, because then when you go back to that buyer, you're showing them, look, we listened to you and we incorporated that into our line. And how could they not buy it? Because it was their idea.
Yeah.
So
and after you've designed for a certain brand for a while, you start learning the history, you see the history. Myself as a designer, I was super involved with the sales team. You guys would give me feedback all the time. Oh, Britta, this print is just blowing off the racks, or this print, this is the least seller. So the next time I'm designing a collection and showing it to the internal team, I have that history and the understanding, and I know I've got the feedback from the buyers and from the sales people who are out there every day getting selling reports and, feedback on even fit. If we have to adjust a fit, we could say, okay, well, this racerback suit, it did so, but there's some improvements that we could make, and they like the style, but the straps were too whatever. So I think staying open to all of those and really listening and not taking it as, your personal criticism or they don't like your design. You're really, catering to who's buying it. So that's a great point. And I wish we had more time because we could keep chatting so much. Sloan, did you have a question?
I do. I have a quick one. How are you connecting with people? Like, what's the platform that you're using to link designers to buyers? Like, what's the bridge there?
Well, when I was referencing, that was in my past, because right now I'm not really, the only thing that I can actually relate it to is in my business that I do now, which is our own creations. I think.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Like, how are you, are you just cold calling these stores, or what's
pretty much right now.
Yeah.
However, I find the success in selling my brand is sharing with the buyers the inspiration of the company and also of the designs. So I've learned that people like to hear the story. And that was the same with when I worked in sales. I always ask the designers, what was your inspiration? Give me something to talk about on this print. What because if you have a story, it just makes the presentation more interesting. So for our company, every design that we do has a story or an inspiration behind it. People like to hear the little details. We have a design where my little dog, Chloe, she's being featured in the design, and people love knowing that it's my little
It's a real,
Pomeranian,
That's so
little
cute.
things. It makes it more personal for them. And then all of a sudden they become more engaged in the design, or as they're selling it on their floor, they could say this inspiration, for example, this shirt I'm wearing is the Saguaro Hotel, because it's bright and colorful, and everybody in Palm Springs has a flamingo float, so that kind of is how we came up with the design. So I think sharing intimate and how you got to those designs or creations in your situation really helps have that connection between whether it's the customer or the buyer.
That's such a perfect segue. I was just chatting with some students yesterday and talking about having a story behind your brand or your collection, and how much that elevates it, because people connect with that then and they get it.
People want to know. It's so funny. Like, why do you want to know?
Yeah, it's going beyond just, I think, there's so much product out there now, and you can get any kind of graphic t-shirt, anywhere.
Right.
So why should they buy this over that?
Right.
And often it comes down to, they relate to it, they resonate with it. It's something they knew about, the dog or the hotel. They're like, oh yeah, I get it.
I remember being there.
Yeah. So you now have your own brand.
Yes.
So yeah, if you could talk, like, why did you decide to switch from sales to launching your own brand, and a little bit about what Brappy is?
Okay, so Brappy came into play. Bill and I moved down here from LA about 5 years ago. And in the thinking that we're just kind of winding down and just wanting to just enjoy this resort town that we live in. But unfortunately, my husband wasn't on board. He was getting bored and he needed to do something, more than just read a book. So we saw a void in the market. And that's what you really have to do when starting a business, is not duplicate what's out there, but find something that isn't out there and develop that idea. So with both of our backgrounds, me in sales, his in production, we realized that there wasn't a fashionable t-shirt for ladies, because there were all these unisex t-shirts that were just, women aren't that way. Our t-shirts are like this because women have hips. And quality, the way women shop, it's first color attracts their attention. Then they go and they touch. So we made sure our cotton was a really soft, comfy cotton, 100% cotton. So you have that sustainability that's very, important now. And a good fit, pre-shrunk, just a good quality t-shirt. So we made sure we had a good product. Then we started on design, but here in Palm Springs, it's endless. The ideas, that you can come up with. And now we've expanded, not only it started just Palm Springs. We're excited to start into Las Vegas and then also in LA. So we had a customer, one of our clients purchases merchandise for all the airports across the country. And they came in because there was a kind of a directive from the Palm Springs airport that going forward, they wanted to support local vendors. So we got connected with a company that does all this buying for multiple airports. And so they're purchasing our Palm Springs t-shirts, but then they asked us to do custom work for their Las Vegas and Los Angeles. So super
That's
excited
so
about that.
exciting. You must have
That's
been so
awesome.
excited.
Yeah, really excited. And I think what's unique and women
That's so
also,
cute.
I know, is that cute? So this is how we package our shirts. So we put it in a clear bag, which is very appropriate because so many of the events now require clear bags. So
Yep.
it's multi-purpose. And then we also include a postcard of the design of the t-shirt that's inside the bag. So it's a
So
great
cute.
marketing tool. And we found that women really like packaging. Think about it. When you go to cosmetics and they have a gift with purchase, you're more excited about the gift than you are about the purchase.
The little makeup bag.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how this concept came up. But packaging, once we started selling it this way, especially where we are, because it's so tourist driven, this is a quick getaway. So at the airport, they can just grab it and go like, oh, I forgot a gift for the pet sitter who's watching my dog at home, you know? So it's been terrific. And then we have this new little clear PVC tote bag. We have it in pink and orange. And, you know, just with this little logo and our branding of our name has been a hit. So we're branching out from just t-shirts into little accessories, you know, more to come. You know, we, like you had mentioned, cosmetic bag, that could be definitely something we move forward with. The airport has been like a wealth of creative ideas, and they've been asking us to expand and do postcards. And, you know, because we already have a postcard, might as well sell them too.
Right. Yeah. Such
So,
a great, the airport is such a perfect venue for all. I mean, you could have the pink tote bag for every
yes,
city.
I know, so excited. And I think, you know, just the idea of Rappy, because she's our character. So this is Rappy, and she, we just see her as a fun-loving gal who loves just everything that the Palm Springs lifestyle has to offer. So that's kind of what we do in all of our designs, just trying to create, where's Rappy going next? Now Rappy's going to Las Vegas. Now Rappy's going to LA. So it's super exciting.
Just having fun. And it's such a positive feeling product that I feel like is so needed today.
Yes, something
Just bright
fun.
and cheery and fun. And
Yeah.
and so you're expanding. It sounds like you're really growing. It's you and Bill. So, you know, for listeners out there, this isn't just an easy, oh, I'm going to start making some t-shirts. You're managing orders and selling and production and the artwork with the, you found an artist to do that. So you're creating with the artist. You're definitely multitasking and running a business probably 24/7.
It's nonstop, but it at least it's ours, you know, we're not reporting to someone else, you know, and if we make a mistake, it's on us, it's not on anyone else. And all of our rewards and accolades, you know, it's all up because of us. So it's fun. It's really different for me to be on this end. So I've kind of done everything now. I've done the retail, I've done the wholesale, and now I'm independent owner of a business, and it's really rewarding.
I won't be surprised if we'll see you at the Seattle airport next.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. And we really do well in touristy types of locations. So, I mean, I want to be in Hawaii, I want to be in Florida, you know, and see so many of our customers who they live part-time in the desert area, the snowbirds. So Seattle, there's a lot of people who live here part-time. Oregon, Canada, Canadians is a big part of our community in season, not in the summer, but in season.
Yeah. A piece of advice I would throw in is that this takes years to do. If you're, you know, if you're a student, a fresh grad, early in your career in design, and you want to do something like this, my biggest piece of advice would just be patient and put in the time, because all of your jobs are teaching you. It's paid education. So you're learning sales, you're learning, if you're on the design side, you're learning all of these things. And, even though you might not want to wait 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to get there, just know that you will get there. And even for myself, I'm doing something that I absolutely love now, which is the blog and the website. And I've, like you, Grace, over 30 years now working in the industry. And I can only be doing what I'm doing now because of the years that I put in.
The
like
experience.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So just, be patient, learn as much as you can, and just, everything changes. You're not going to be stuck in you might feel like you're being stuck in a job at certain points in your career, but everything changes and everything evolves. And so it's really wonderful to see your journey from your buyer executive training program to where you are now, and really enjoying the success of it all. And are the products available on the website?
They are. We have a website, and it's Rappi, RAPPI. Rappi Palm Springs.
I'll put it in the notes too. And I do have one of the t-shirts that I love, but that little clear bag is adorable. And I just think this is a game changer. Ever since we did this, our business really started to expand, because so many of this, because when we sell it to the store, whether they just buy the shirt or they don't want, they get this bag and postcard with the cost of the shirt. So why wouldn't they want it? It's just an easy takeaway for their customer. Yeah. And it's funny, I was looking for a clear bag because I went to the Moda Center to a concert last week. I needed a clear bag, and you're seeing them everywhere now, like all the women have clear bags. Well, we just were fortunate to do the BNP, which is the International Tennis Tournament here in Indian Wells. And it's a 2-week tournament. And we had these bags in pink and orange. They sold out like every day. They were asking us, bring more. And fortunately, because we're local, we were able to accommodate them. But it was unbelievable how many, those people are crazy, those tennis fans. They're obsessive. They just come and they're just buying anything. And we learned so much. We sold out of our smalls like within days. Those players are fit and tiny. We needed extra smalls too. Yeah. So we had 4 designs in the tournament. We had our bags, and it was really exciting. So we're really looking forward to doing the tournament again this year. So that's fantastic. You've come a long way since you launched the line, and I talked to you back then, and you were just getting things going, and it's struggling. Yes. Yeah. So people could find you on LinkedIn. You can look up the Rappi website. Yes. And thank you so much for your time and your sharing of your experiences and knowledge. There were so many juicy, good nuggets in there that I can't wait to go back through the video and really highlight some of those things. And I'm sure it'll be very beneficial for viewers. So appreciate your time and energy, and love you. And so great to see you. I love you too. Thank you. All right, see you on the next one.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Bye.